Hello, friends, and welcome to the Every Touch Point Matters podcast. On this show, we explore how every professional interaction, whether internal or external, shapes leadership, influences professional reputation, and affects how we're perceived in business. And today, I have to say, I'm thrilled to welcome Jay Todd Phillips to the studio. Jay Todd is the CEO and founder of Parson Partners, and he has dedicated his career to advising organizations on strategy, growth, and innovation. With decades of experience in management consulting, Jay Todd has worked closely with leaders across numerous industry sectors, helping them unlock new opportunities and navigate complex challenges. Known for his strategic insights and commitment to collaboration, Jay Todd brings a wealth of knowledge about the power of relationships and inspired leadership. It's great to have you here today, Jay Todd, and welcome to the podcast.
David, thank you very much.
Oh my gosh,
it's
a pleasure.
Pleasure to be here. I wish I could bring you with me for that kind of intro. That was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Well, Jay Todd, I have to tell you, We've sat on a board of a philanthropic organization for a number of years now. You are now the board chair, and although we don't have that many in-depth interactions, those interactions that we do have, I just admire. I just look up to you. I've admired you from afar, and I'm just excited to have you here
today.
Thank you
very much.
Really appreciate it. All right, so we're going to dig into this idea of every touch point matters. But before we go there, it'd be good to kind of understand from contextually your journey.
Sure.
Okay. And so from my extensive research, you kind of started in the airline industry, found your way into health insurance,
Healthcare.
right?
Yep.
Healthcare, provider health insurance. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, Humana, Cigna, I believe. And now you've got your own management consulting company since 2013, I believe.
Right.
So interesting journey. And I've had, a journey myself. So there's always these inflection points. Help me understand the path, man.
How'd that happen? Yeah, I appreciate that. I have to go back to growing up in New Jersey and I think learning a lot about myself, and everywhere I travel, everywhere I go, I think I remind myself and others that I'm still a Jersey boy. And that means a few things. It means I get to use bad language whenever I want. I get to ask for things whenever I want, et cetera, et cetera. I tease about that. I started in the airline business because I was actually a computer science and math major in undergrad and went in on the IT side. I was in Atlanta. I'd built a house at a very early age, and so I wanted to build roots in Atlanta. I was in the airline industry in lots of different roles on the IT side, then on the business operations, strategy, finance, and then 9/11 happened. And just a few months before 9/11, I'd gotten married. We were trying to raise a family and do some fun things. And I realized that was just not the industry that was going to allow me to be the breadwinner and the provider for my family and to accomplish the career goals I'd had. So a very dear friend who I'd worked with at Delta, who was a consultant to us at Delta, was now in the insurance world at Cigna and called me. He's a Jersey boy and said, "Come hang out with us here at Cigna." And so because of 9/11, went from the airline business to the insurance world. And then wanted to learn that business. When I started in that world, I couldn't tell you the difference between a PPO and an HMO, right? Like most people, right?
Of course.
So Cigna, then Humana, then Blue Cross Blue Shield of Illinois, lots of different roles, lots of different markets. We lived in the Philadelphia area, back to Atlanta, Louisville, Kentucky, and now here in Chicago. And so it's just been a tremendous run. And then finally, I decided it was time for me to go do my own crazy thing. And that's quite a long story, but I'll tell you that there were a few quick drivers of that decision at that time. Number one, I honestly, I hate to say it this way, but I was a bit bored. I didn't feel challenged. I didn't feel like I could bring all of me to work every day.
Yeah.
And I wanted more fulfillment from the work I did. We spend so much time working all day, every day, right? I got to work with amazing people. I learned so much from leaders and doers across these organizations. And now it was time for me to go try to bring my magic to the world. But then there was also something very personal, David.
Yeah.
And that is my father died at 42 years old. And I died coaching my baseball team, had a heart attack on the ball field. And I didn't know this at the time, but lots of people, including me, define our life expectancy by that of our parents, especially when they die young.
Wow.
And so I was at a point in time where I said, I want to be the father I need to be. I want to be the man and the citizen and the contributor I need to be. And I needed the space and the platform through which to do that. So that's how I started the company.
A lot going on there.
Yeah.
And sounds familiar about why I kind of decided to hang my own shingle. We'll go there in a second. But what was it that you took from your work at Delta in terms of, you didn't really have industry expertise per se, but there was some expertise that you had to have brought to the table and had to translate into the world of, health
In the
insurance,
world.
right?
Sure.
Help me understand that.
A couple of things. Number one, I was not customer facing at Delta.
Okay.
I was internal. And you talked about every touch matters and this notion that it's both internal and external. Effectively, I was going into an internal consultant role at Cigna.
Okay.
And so very aligned in this regard. It was a transferable skill set. I knew strategy, I knew portfolio management, I knew finance, I knew projects and programs. And so taking that skill set and helping leaders at Cigna get better in those areas was a good fit for me at the time. So it was a natural transition. It was a completely different industry. Again, I didn't know the difference between a PPO and HMO, but it was a good fit.
So the functional expertise held sway, leadership, project management, those sorts of things. Those are transferable, no question about it. All right, now you're doing your own thing, management consulting. One of the phrases in your firm's description is the intersection of business strategy, leadership, and culture.
Sure.
And I love that. Tell me a little bit more about that phrase, but how that's translating into your work.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, right, whether you make widgets or you provide services, we're human beings getting things done, right? I'm also fascinated, for some crazy reason, by outer space, the vastness in both space and time. And it reminds me of how quickly we are here, how brief our moment is, and therefore the opportunity to make a difference while we're here, right? And so this intersection of leadership and strategy and culture, I can add finance because that's the undergirding of business, right? Is all about connecting with people, understanding purpose of both individual and organization, and finding ways to move the needle and drive change and innovation that makes a difference, that makes a favorable impact.
Well, I love when you say make a difference. I mean, it really strikes a chord with me. I like to make money and provide for my family, but I also want to leave something behind, right? And kind of pay it forward, because so many people have been so good to me, and it feels like you're doing that. You had a seminal moment when your father passed at 42 years old. Were there other inflection points, moments, contributors to this worldview that you just shared?
Yeah, that was clearly a big one for me.
Yeah.
I was 14 at the time, and I was very close with Dad. In college, I was selected by the city I grew up in New Jersey, to represent that city as essentially an exchange student in West Africa. So I had opportunity to live in Ghana for 4 months in a village. I built a library. I taught computers to kids who had never seen computers before. This amazing exposure to a culture very different than ours, in a time when I was impressionable and learning and seeking purpose and meaning and those sorts of things, right? So I look upon that journey and that experience as a very spiritual, inflection point.
Yeah.
I was in the very castles where they held slaves that were sent off to the New World. And at the same time, I experienced outdooring ceremonies, which is when babies are born. And 7 days later, after they are proved to be healthy, right, they literally bring them outside. They give them their official name, and it's this celebration of life and opportunity. And so that was a very pivotal moment for me. And then moving forward, I'd say the other way is the birth of my children, of course. My business is Parson Partners. My daughter is Parker. My son is Mason. And the contraction of their names is the business
Fabulous.
and why I'm here.
I did not know that. That moment in West Africa, I got to believe it's carried over to your commitment to philanthropy. You're very involved in a number of boards, very involved in youth mentoring and such. And so I don't want to assume, but I think the seed was planted in that time in Africa. Tell me a little bit more about your board work and philanthropic work.
Sure. I'd say the seed was heavily cultivated in Africa. It was planted by my mom. And growing up, she preached all day, every day that from those to whom much is given, much is expected. And we're not a religious family, but that is a verse from the Bible. And it's the driving force behind the work we do in the community, right? So we've been blessed. We've been very fortunate to have education and career and access. And there are so many people that have tremendous skills and incredible potential and just need a hand up, right? And so my focus in the philanthropic world has been about access, education, and of course, healthcare. So I am the board chair of Cara Collective, which is all about not just giving a person a job, but transforming their lives in ways that they are improved, their communities, their families benefit, and good stuff happens. So it's all about giving back.
Well, Cara is near and dear to my heart. And you mentioned something. It's not just about supporting the individual. It's all the downstream residual impact into their families and community. That's where it really, we see the payoff. And
it's tremendous.
So good for you. Thank you for all of your great work with
thank
your
you,
leadership.
David.
Really. What's going on in the clients that you're servicing these days? Are you seeing some common issues and challenges within the management consulting that you and your firm are doing?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. Our focus generally is solving what most people might deem to be unsolvable problems, right? And fixing challenges that are in the midst of chaos and uncertainty and challenge, right? And at the same time, we like the other end of the spectrum, which is wild growth. We're buying a new company, we're entering a new market, et cetera, et cetera. The theme across those two spaces is chaos. And in chaos, really strong leaders rise. And sometimes those leaders need a nudge. Sometimes they need permission. Sometimes they need space, right? And the environments in which they work aren't conducive to the leadership they bring and the change they have to drive. And so we are very fortunate to work both at the board level and at the C-suite level to help these leaders define the path forward, define themselves in ways that allows them to lead effectively, and to build a culture of collaboration. Again, we're at that intersection of leadership and strategy and culture in ways that I think the McKinseys and the big other companies that are out there, right? They're so often focused on the ones and zeros, and we like that intersection because that's where change happens.
So tell me, certain industries, certain size of firms, help me understand who your kind of sweet spot.
Sure. So much of what we do, of course, is based in healthcare, but we've expanded in ways that we are focused on both the payer and provider sides. So we are helping insurance companies go into the Medicare Advantage world. We are helping hospitals turn around and fix their financials and their operational challenges. We also work with companies that are selling into or providing services to either payers or providers or both. So those companies are generally large, right, and complex. We've also had a lot of fun with particularly multi-generational family-owned businesses. Here again, if you're the third generation leader, you're the granddaughter of the founder, you may still have what we call G2, right? That second generation, still looking in, still trying to manage and not remembering that you're now the CEO, you're now the leader. And so finding ways to build space for those folks to take the companies to the next level is what we help folks do on a regular basis.
Let's dig into kind of building space. You mentioned, sometimes these leaders need a nudge. Sometimes they need motivation, inspiration. I found something, you said permission too was the other word that I really kind of jumped out at me. I find a lot of the work I'm doing one-on-one with leaders, not to the degree you are, is just validating and confirming, being an outside voice to just confirm this direction you're thinking about and haven't acted on yet, that makes sense.
It's okay.
I think they've got the answers. Maybe they need to be tweaked a little bit, but just letting them know, that makes sense.
Sure.
Oftentimes they don't have someone to dialogue with.
Sure.
Do you find that?
All day long,
Yeah.
all day, every day. That validation is critical.
Yeah.
And I swear that I've got maybe 14 different books in my head that I need to write at some point.
Yeah.
But one of them, the title will be Leadership is Lonely. And so many folks have those ideas. They may even know that it's the right path forward, but the challenge of standing alone and bringing people along is hard. We like comfort, and that's uncomfortable in a lot of, especially when there's chaos and uncertainty. And so giving permission and reminding people that it's okay to be lonely in your ideas, but create community in the vision and the path forward, that's a good thing to do.
Wow, leadership is lonely. I love it.
Lonely.
All right, let's start writing that book.
I need to read it myself, right? We all need that one.
Well, that's true. I have my moments, and it's always nice to talk to folks like you. You're part of the Forbes Business Council,
Sure.
right? Help me understand what that is. And I know you've written a number of articles for the publication. How'd you find your way in, and what's it all about?
Yeah, it found me.
Yeah.
And so it's a platform, essentially, right? And Forbes, of course, is well known in the business community. And so it's an opportunity to invest in this platform for publishing, leveraging the Forbes name and producing ideas and delivering content that may resonate with folks, right? So generally speaking, Forbes is looking for articles that are helpful to leaders in business.
Okay.
And so that's directly aligned with the work we
Absolutely.
do. I come up with most of my ideas in the shower or when I'm walking the dog, right? And so I'm quick to jot things down. But it's an outlet for creativity. I've talked about problem solving and leadership, and I should definitely put one out there about leadership being lonely at some point. But it's a creative outlet for me. And the feedback's been crazy. I didn't realize how much some of these ideas resonate. So often we think we're alone in our thoughts, right? Or we think we're the only ones dealing with these issues. And to hear people share their thoughts and say, man, that really resonated. That was helpful. I had been thinking that. It's part of that validation for them and for me. So it's been a great venue.
And tell me about some of the people you've met through that council. I would think the network is kind of cool.
It's a tremendous network. It is worldwide. There are leaders and doers out there that are creative, thoughtful, innovative in ways they inspire me, right? And so this notion that every touch matters, there's 24 hours in a day, right? And we're trying to figure out how to leverage every one of those moments. So many of those interactions have been formative and positive.
Oh, fantastic. Well, speaking of every touch point matters. Maybe we can dig into that. You know the work that I do exclusively with professional services firms. How do we activate consultants, client-facing subject matter experts to be more confident, engaging at not only the clients that they're serving, but finding their way into relationships beyond those executive sponsors and really helping support revenue growth. Right? Be on guard for other issues and needs that are out there. we live in a pretty commoditized world called professional services. It's hard to separate one provider from the next based solely on technical competence, in my opinion. And so what's going to create that separation? We believe it's that how we shape that client experience on the front end, not necessarily the delivery, subject matter expertise delivery on the back end. And I firmly believe everybody's got to feel that they have a stake in shaping that client experience, not the senior partners and rainmakers and biz dev folks, everybody who's embedded at that client for an extended period of time needs to feel that they have to shoulder some burden around advancing relationships and making sure it's a positive experience. So to me, every interaction matters, even down to the most junior people.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Maybe even not those people who are client facing, but they're client interacting by phone or engaging through email or whatever it might be. That's the premise of this conversation.
Sure.
I think you get it. Okay. And that's why you're here. You know, that intersection that you mentioned before. But what does that every touch matter mantra mean to you?
You know, you touched on several things in what you just said, right? So this idea that at every level, every touch matters. In my mind, I'm a visual thinker and visual learner. I can picture a matrix, right? And so you may consider that down the left column of that matrix are all the roles, all the contributors on the team, and across the top are all the clients, various roles and individuals across the client, and figuring out the quality within each of those cells, the quality of the interactions, the quality of the product. Every single one of those makes a difference, right? You also talked about this notion that each of us, at whichever level we sit in an organization, is ultimately accountable for business development. And I think that's a notion that most people are afraid of. I remember when I first went to Cigna, I had an opportunity to be in strategy and finance, and then I wanted to go learn the business. And the best way to learn the business was in sales and account management. And at that time in my career, sales was a dirty word, right? I'm like,
It still is. Trust me, it still is.
What's it going to take to get you in a car today? Like that was my notion of sales, right? There was a mentor, a neighbor of mine actually, who said, we went to lunch and I said, man, I'm scared of this sales thing. I don't think I like this. And he said, guess what? You're a problem solver and you get to, in the world of sales, sit and listen to someone's problems, ask lots of questions, and come up with an idea or a solution that helps them solve that problem. And if there's alignment, you get paid for it. And so this notion that every touch matters for me is as much about listening and understanding and refining and clarifying what we know and understand about our clients so that the value we generate and produce is directly relevant, directly aligned with their issue, and builds that that long-term connectedness.
Well, what you just brought up about each of those touches doesn't have to be me verbalizing something to you, me doing something for you. Touches can be as simple as being a great listener. Asking really good questions. Being prepared. Connecting the dots between this challenge you have with some of the broader mission, vision, objectives of your firm. And the word you used was helping too. I think too many people think, sales is a hustle. It's a one-sided thing. But when we change the mindset and just think about how can I help? We've got significant capabilities here. I'm listening, I'm understanding, and there's alignment, as you mentioned, and we can help. And when people go out with that mindset, I think it's a game changer. It breaks down a lot of the fear factor. Half the battle of the work that we do is breaking down fear factor with this group, changing their mindset. Because we stop ourselves. We either have this notion that it's dirty, sales is dirty, or inauthentic, right? But when we couch it more as helping, it changes the whole dynamic.
I'll add to
Please.
that. Please. So again, we think selling or managing an account or delivering value is about giving and answering, right? And we have a solution-oriented culture,
Yes.
right? Everyone has been in a room where the boss said, don't come to me with a problem unless you have a solution, right? And I wrote an article actually for Forbes about this very issue, which is to say, let's focus on the problem. Imagine we were a problem-oriented solution and we spent more time asking questions and confirming and listening. We often talk about the fact that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth and we should use them proportionally, right? But if we spend more time understanding and investigating the problem, the solution is the easy part.
Yeah.
And so problem solvers, AKA account executives and salespeople and solution providers that do a good job of figuring out what the problem is, produce far more value. They are far better partners. It's considerably more consultative and less transactional.
Yeah.
And it works.
Well, I'm just jotting a couple notes down, but thank you for mentioning it's about solving problems and listening. Yeah, the tendency of those that are in the world of professional services, we're subject matter experts. We're kind of fixers, right? We're expected to go in and fix. And too often we start fixing too early, right? We hear something and we assume that, you know what? I've heard this before. Here's what you need to do. They start wagging their finger. Of course, there's an undercurrent of, hey, I need to credentialize myself and showcase my vast knowledge, right? And I want to do that sooner than later, rather than just giving it space, being in the moment, listening with every ounce of your being, asking really thoughtful and curious questions, maybe helping that other individual unpack the problem and shed different light on it.
Yeah. I'll give you some an anecdote that I heard.
Yeah.
This was not that long ago. There was a television show where there were older Americans, right? But it was a dating show for like people in their 50s and 60s and 70s, right? And there was a counselor who was providing feedback on the folks going on these dates. And she used a term. There was a woman that kept talking about herself. And let me tell you, essentially, like what you're describing, trying to credentialize and prove value and demonstrate how smart they are, how sharp they are. And her term was, you should be more interested instead of interesting.
Yeah.
And we think so frequently that we have to prove ourselves. We have to be interesting, right? And to your point, if we are more interested, if we're more collecting information, gathering insights, asking questions, number one, the person feels valued and heard, and the solutions we ultimately deliver are far more aligned with the actual problem.
Amen. Well, listen, we can apply it in our personal lives.
Everywhere.
Right?
That's why I got it from that personal show, but it works professionally.
Well, again, I think people default to what's comfortable, and that's talking about themselves. Sometimes they don't like silence, pregnant pauses, and so we try to fill them, fill the air.
Yeah, let's keep talking.
Right, let's keep talking, and it's going to be about myself. You know, we talk about the trust equation in my program, David Maister and Charlie Green's work, and credibility plus reliability plus professional intimacy divided by self-orientation equals trust. Well, if we're going to optimize the solution, trust, that denominator, self-orientation, has to be low. That's right. It can't be zero.
Right.
It has to be low. Yeah. And too often we make it about ourselves. And you're talking about, you make it about the other person.
That's right.
Love it.
About that person and about the problem or the opportunity, right? So often we get in meetings and the scope goes way over here and the conversation goes off on tangents. Staying focused on the problem and the people and the culture, right, is where the magic happens, and forcing that discipline ultimately leads to good stuff.
Well, and I think you use the word magic. I think this is magic, and too few firms get that. Yeah. They think they've got to lean into technical competence, and that's going to carry the day. And sadly, that's getting it is commoditized. It's getting AI'd out the door. Right. Some of that, right, or outsourced. And so this notion of relationship building and every touch point matters, to me, is more important than ever.
Yeah.
However, my question to you is, we don't have a crystal ball. Does this have legs? Does every touch point matter? Is that going to get AI out the door? Help me understand your thoughts on that.
I've got thoughts on that.
Please.
So first of all, AI can't replace relationships.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I think, I learned so much from my children. I have a 22-year-old and a 19-year-old. I learn more from them than they learn from me. That's for sure. Relationships are about human interaction, and the nuances and complexities of personalities and emotions and feelings combined with intellect and technical expertise is where the magic truly lies, right? I can go get information anywhere today. It's on my phone, it's readily available and accessible. But the application of knowledge, the timeliness, the delivery, so much of that secret sauce is far more art than science. And there is so much room for people to be better at it. And I think Gray Matter Group is focused in the exact right area. And it goes across all professional services, to your point, whether you're a consulting firm, a law firm, any professional service firm, you can be an accounting firm. I have to understand your business before I know the rules of accounting and GAAP principles.
Sure.
So it definitely has legs.
Well, thank you for confirming that. At least in my lifetime, hopefully this continues to be the case. You know what I do. You haven't seen my program per se, but you see how I try to represent it into the marketplace. You have a team of individuals who are out there client-facing, being asked to kind of raise their game or beyond just technical competence. Mm-hmm. How do you think the Gray Matters program, relationship expansion, and some of the concepts that we try to teach, and we keep it simple, give them a process, how do you think that's sort of empowering those technicians? How's it impacting them to just feel more confident in the moment?
Sure. Telling someone how to do something will make them slight or somewhat effective, right? Giving them a framework and allowing them to think through their approach, their style. Am I introverted or extroverted? Am I loud? Am I quiet? Am I this? Am I that? What I think you produce is a framework through which I get to apply my style. And the account executive or the consultant to my left and my right can individually apply their styles through your framework. And I think that's why it's special. I think companies that have 50 account executives, each of whom is unique and brings unique skills to the table, can benefit from the framework and the model that you give them, and then they can go deliver.
Thank you. I think about what our secret sauce is. It's not the content per se, right? The learnings are pretty straightforward. They're simple. Don't overwhelm an already overwhelmed group of individuals with a bunch of sales shtick. So keep it simple, but wrap a process around it. Break down fear factor and give them a process so that, and I like to say process for consultants is sort of their safety net.
Yeah.
Think about it. They deploy process every day in their delivery of their work, methodologies, industry expertise, those sorts of things. So would it be nice if they had a process for building and nurturing and maintaining relationship?
Sure.
We teach that. That's the safety net. If you want me to go up on that high wire act called relationship building and revenue generation, give me a safety net.
Right.
If you don't give me a safety net, the odds of me going out there and doing that aren't so high.
I'll be nervous,
right?
At the very least.
Doesn't make sense. So, the rigor, the discipline, and they dig that. They like methodology.
Yeah.
And so thank you for calling that out, because I really do think that's one of the parts of the program that is a game changer.
Yeah.
We need to start winding down a little bit
This
if
is
we
quick,
could.
man. This
And
is
I
too
know
much fun.
it goes so fast. Thank you. If you had to go back in time and think about some advice that someone would give you, that maybe 14-year-old when your father passed away, or maybe before that, or maybe after that, if you had some advice that person could have given you that you would now, looking back, pass on to the next generation, what would that be?
Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate in my life. I've had amazing mentors. I've had great examples of what I define as success, and not just financially or professionally, right, but personally as well. It's easier for me to share a few things that people have actually said that have helped me.
Yeah.
Number one was have fun giving, right? Have fun being generous. Have fun learning. Have fun. It's all about how we give to the world, and not necessarily because of this notion that we get back what we receive or we get out of it what we put into it, but in giving, in being generous, in supporting others, there's a special reward that is far stronger, far more relevant than money and professional success. There is a personal pride in knowing that we helped someone else or we gave in a way that was valuable. So that was big for me. Another one was leverage your haters.
Okay.
And that might seem counterintuitive, but the fact is, people at a young age who are ambitious, who are confident, who are dreamers, are often people try to keep them in a box and keep them down. I'll never forget, I was at Delta, and at that time I didn't know how to write a resume or do any of those things. And so my objective said, it's my goal to change the world. And that doesn't mean anything in business, right? Like, I know that now, but I remember an HR executive saying, you can't put that on a piece of paper. That's not a real objective. And the fact is, yeah, it is. And those folks who try to put you in that box, or who try to limit your success with their own fears and concerns, right, can turn into the very motivation you need to be the person you want to be in the world, and also give in ways that help others, inspire others, and motivate folks to be their best selves.
So do you consider that HR person a hater or maybe a dissuader? Maybe both. I don't know.
Very similar, right?
Right.
She was, and what I appreciate now, right, as a much older person and professional and more experienced, is I can't imagine how many people were dissuaders of hers. And what was her experience coming up? Women in the workforce at that time were still dealing with, and we still today, right, are dealing with lots of challenges. She was in a male-dominated world and trying her best to do what she thought was appropriate, right? So I give grace to her experience, but at the same time, we often try to make ourselves smaller than our potential suggests that we should be. Everyone here can be a superstar. And again, back to this idea of space, right? Outer space. We are here for like 13 milliseconds. And you may as well live it up, have some fun, right? And give back.
Jay Todd, you are so inspiring. And honestly, and again, I said at the beginning, I admired you from afar. And it was such a thrill to have you on. Have fun giving. That applies in so many ways, not only in a business context, but also in just our everyday lives, giving back, your philanthropic work. You live that every day. And again, I cannot thank you enough for being part of this program today.
Well, thank you.
You've shined a beautiful light on who and what we're about. So thank you.
I appreciate that. And I have to say thank you to you, David. Again, the work you do in the community is tremendous. The work you're doing here, right, in helping professional services companies, but also the individuals in those companies who are aspiring to be more, again, creating a framework and giving them the space to excel in their careers is tremendous. And I'm encouraging lots of business owners to think about how they can leverage your skills.
All right, folks, make sure you listen. Okay. All right, pal.
Thank you very much.
All the best. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Great job.
Thank you.